Avs faithful, we are back. In today's video, we have another Avalanche video for you guys. It's been a couple years since I made one, and that's not because I've stopped following the Avs or stopped liking hockey. I love hockey. It's my second favorite sport behind the NFL, right? And they're very, very close. They're like this, right? NFL and then hockey right here. So, yeah, man, I still love it, but I really just stopped making videos because obviously the Broncos videos perform better on the channel, and so I kind of shifted more to the Broncos, but still love the Avs and honestly still love the Rockies as well, even though we're not a great team. So those are the three teams I follow the most, but wanted to get back in and make another Avalanche video because we have just wrapped up the trade deadline for the NHL season, and oh man, the Avalanche made some moves. So we're going to go over every single move that the Avs made leading up to the trade deadline. We're going to start after the Olympic break, right? Just start with those trades. We're not going to start towards the beginning, middle of the season, right? Just going to start with the most recent trades for the Avalanche. And that started back when we traded Sam Girard to the Pittsburgh Penguins, right? We sent defenseman Samuel Girard and a 2028 second-round pick to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Brett Kulak. Now, Sam Girard being traded away was a bit of an interesting one. I feel like he didn't really live up to that contract that he signed, right? He had his flashes, he had his moments, right? All the tornadoes were pretty fun to watch, all that stuff. But it really felt like he kind of didn't grow with his contract, right? You were projecting growth for Samuel Girard and feel like he really didn't grow with that contract, in my opinion. So you are getting someone in Brett Kulak on a cheaper cap hit, which opened up the cap hit for more room, obviously, for more moves. And yeah, I like Brett Kulak. I think he fits the system. Sam Girard, right, he is a smaller guy on the blue line. Very, very, very good offensive player. But, you know, he had his up and downs, and it kind of felt like it was time to move on, right? I would have been fine with keeping Sam Girard, but I do like this move opening up the cap space to make more moves for the Colorado Avalanche. We also acquired defenseman Nick Blankenburg from the Nashville Predators in exchange for a 2027 fifth-round pick. And really what this is this is going to be essentially our fifth defenseman, our emergency defenseman, if an injury occurs for the rest of the regular season and in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Nick Blankenburg is going to be the guy who's called upon, right? You're going to have Makar, Taves, you're going to have Manson, you're going to have Malinsky, you're going to have Kulak, right? You're going to have all these guys. You're going to have Brent Burns too. But if you need Nick Blankenburg, he will be that essentially the seventh defenseman, right? He'll be that extra guy who can come in my opinion. Then we had the Nick Waugh trade, and that happened yesterday. I saw the news. We traded for Nicholas Waugh from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this was a bit of an interesting one. I saw the notification hit, and I'm like, what? We gave up that for Nick Waugh, a 2027 conditional first-round pick, and a 2026 conditional fifth-round pick, right? And then it was revealed later that the Avs tried to trade for Nazem Kadri, but Flames ownership shut that down. It's like, okay, Nick Waugh's fine, right? Gives us a good center group with McKinnon at the 1C, Brock Nelson at the 2C. Then you would have Nick Waugh at the 3C. Then you would have Jack Drew at the 4th seed. Okay, that sounds fine. But, you know, it's a little bit of an overpay. And honestly, it was a seller's market. Sellers got a whole heck of a lot of value for trading away players at the deadline. Of course, Toronto gets our 2027 first and a 2026 fifth. The condition on those are it's a top 10 protected first round pick. So if we pick in the top 10, we can keep that, bumping the 2027 first round pick out to 2028. And then the 2026 fifth round pick, we have three of them, or had three of them. And essentially, it'll be the worst of the three picks that Toronto gets. So the later pick in the draft. Then, after the trade deadline passed, we all thought we were going to make a move. About an hour before the deadline occurred, Frank Saravalli reported that us and the Maple Leafs began trade discussions once again, or re-engaged trade discussions for Bobby McMann. So it looked like maybe Bobby McMann would be coming, adding him as a bottom six, middle six forward depth for the team. It's like, okay, that's fine, just helping us get deeper. But that ended up not coming to pass. The trade deadline ended, and it's like, okay, it's a fine trade deadline. overpaid for Nick Waugh, right? Kulak's fine. You opened up more cap space, but didn't really do anything with it. What are you going to do? But about an hour after the trade deadline, because trades get put in a queue and the NHL has to process them. So technically they were submitted by the trade deadline, but they still had to get processed, which is why we see trades occur way after the deadline. Nazem Kadri is officially back in Colorado, and I could not be more excited. Man, a fan favorite player here in Colorado is returning home, helped us win that Stanley Cup back in 2022, hopefully helping us do that again this year. And so we got Nazem Kadri, right? Obviously, that's kind of the whole centerpiece of this trade, but we also acquired a 2027 fourth-round pick. And in exchange to Calgary, we gave up Victor Olofsson, Max Curran, a conditional 2028 first-round pick, and a conditional 2027 second-round pick. Now, Victor Olofsson, right, he signed a deal with us in the offseason to add some scoring depth, and to be honest, he's been kind of hot and cold. There's been times where he hasn't been noticeable for me in the lineup. I'll be honest, sometimes I forget he's on the team, it feels like. But, you know, he is some nice scoring depth. And honestly, it's unfortunate that he had to get shipped out after signing a deal with us. He actually did an interview before the deadline talking about how this upcoming game that we have with the Stars, right, it's going to be like a playoff series, or it's going to be like a playoff game. And then he gets shipped off to Calgary. So feel bad for Victor Olofsson, but he's a good scoring depth guy, good for the Flames. Prospect Max Curran, though, little tough to give up on him, right? Obviously, our prospect pool isn't anything crazy, right? Because we trade away all of our picks and we trade away prospects to enter this win now moment. So I like Max Curran. I thought he was kind of our third to fifth best prospects. Granted, not in a fantastic system, but I did think he was one of our top guys in, once again, a lower rated system. Obviously behind Mikhail Gulyayev and then Ilya Nabokov, I would say those would be our top two prospects. But then we have given them a 2028 conditional first round pick and a conditional 2027 second round pick. Now, I actually haven't looked up what the conditions of these picks are. However, I would guess that the condition on this pick is if we pick in the top 10 of 2027, right, and we keep the pick that we were going to give to Toronto, and then Toronto's pick gets bumped to 2028, which would be this pick, the Flames would then get our 2029 first-round pick. That's how I think the condition would work. Again, I haven't looked at it, and the details haven't been released at the time of recording, but we'll have to go back and see what the conditions are. And then I don't know anything of what the 2027 second round condition would be on that pick. However, let's take a look at what the playoff lineup could look like for the Avalanche heading in, obviously, to these upcoming playoffs. The top line would be Nathan MacKinnon at the center position with Gabriel Landeskog and Martin Necas. Yeah, that's an absolute killer pair. Happy for Gabe that he's gotten back up to that first line, right? After coming back after, 3 seasons, obviously on injured reserve, just because of that freak injury, that freak accident. Gabriel Landeskog, finally happy to see him back. And he got injured earlier this season before the Olympic break. Comes back, plays for Team Sweden, comes back, and is honestly playing really, really well on the first line with MacKinnon and Necas. Then on the second line, you'd have Brock Nelson, Arturi Lehkonen, and Valeri Nichushkin, right? Of course, Lehkonen is injured right now. He's week to week with an upper body injury, but hopefully he should be back in time for the playoffs. Probably sooner than that, I would imagine. But yeah, Arturi Lehkonen could absolutely take over Gabriel Landeskog's spot on the top line, right? You could have him flip-flop because Lehkonen's played really well with MacKinnon and Necas on that first line. Then you got Brock Nelson, who's having a fantastic season here in Colorado, fantastic second season here with the Avalanche, right? We acquired him at the deadline last year, and I was excited, and he played pretty well, and then we signed him to a 3-year contract extension. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm happy about that, right? But he's really on another level, right? Last year, felt like he was kind of getting settled in and wasn't producing as much as we thought he would. But this year, he has been on another level. Brock Nelson has been fantastic this season. And then, of course, you have Valeri Nichushkin on the other wing. Super, super valuable player to this team, right? I think he needs to get more power play time. Obviously, with the last-ranked power play unit, would like to see Nichushkin use a little bit more, but he is a very, very important part to this team. Then you move on to the third line, and dude, having Nazem Kadri as your third line center is fantastic. Of course, he was the second line center back in that cup run in 2022, and now that he gets to play on the third line center, that is absolutely crazy, right? So Nazem Kadri is that third line center, and then you have Parker Kelly and Ross Colton on that third line. Now, you could argue maybe Parker Kelly drops down to the fourth line, but I really like how Parker Kelly has been playing, right? I've seen a lot of people make their playoff or healthy predictions of the line and having Parker Kelly on the fourth line. And I swear it's not because we share the same first name, right? But Parker Kelly has been unreal this season. Look, that contract that he signed with us, what is it, a 4-year deal, is looking absolutely fantastic. That is fantastic value. I think Parker Kelly deserves to be a middle six forward on this third line. And you, of course, have Ross Colton, who has had his up and downs this entire season. But then you go to the fourth line, and you have Nicholas Waugh, Jack Drury, and Logan O'Connor. Honestly, you could kind of move this offensive line all around if you wanted to. You could have Jack Drury as the center, then you could have Nicholas Waugh playing the right wing, and then you could have Logan O'Connor on left, right? But this is kind of how I see it shaping up. I think Nicholas Waugh is going to be that fourth line center, but I also really liked how Jack Drury has been playing. So I do think he is going to stay on the roster, or he's obviously staying on the roster, but moving him to wing, I think will still be a solid move. You can move him back to center if you want, because he has been pretty solid at faceoffs, in my opinion. An area where other guys like Nathan MacKinnon have been lacking, or that's not their strongest suit, I should say, but yeah, you would have Jack Drury, Nicholas Waugh, and then Logan O'Connor returning from IR hopefully soon, right? Just having another boost in our penalty kill would be fantastic. Love Logan O'Connor. Hopefully he can get back sooner rather than later. But man, I am really loving this forward group. Let's take a look at how the defense could shape up. And that's going to start with our top pair in Devon Toews and Cale Makar, right? The 1-2 combination. Cale Makar maybe having a little bit of a down year compared to his years previous, but still Cale Makar, right? Still Devon Toews, right? Fantastic top defensive pairing right here for the Avalanche. And then you have on the second line, you have Josh Manson and Brent Burns. Really solid defense here. Josh Manson, right, obviously had a great year in our cup run. And then in the years since, there have been some up and downs with Josh Manson, right? A lot of complaining from Avs fans, some boneheaded moves from Josh Manson. But this season, honestly, Josh Manson has played really, really well. Sometimes, obviously, takes the occasional stupid penalty or makes a stupid mistake. But Josh Manson, in my opinion, has been really fantastic this season. And then Brent Burns has exceeded my expectations when we signed him in the offseason, right? I thought he was going to for sure be on the bottom pairing. But being able to come up here and be the middle pairing or on the middle defense pair has been phenomenal to see, right? Hoping we can bring Brent Burns his first Stanley Cup this season. And then on the bottom pair, you have Brett Kulak, who you just brought in, and another young defenseman, and Sam Malinsky, who we did just extend earlier this season. So love this pairing, right? Sam Malinsky, young guy, has a bright future with us, a nice puck-moving guy. And then Brett Kulak, kind of the more traditional defenseman, I would say, right? I believe started the year in Edmonton, then traded over to Pittsburgh. I think it was in the Tristan Jarry, Stuart Skinner trade that he was included. I can't remember, but was moved over to Pittsburgh and then now comes to the Avalanche. And I do really like how Brett Kulak fits this team. And then, of course, you have the goaltending situation with Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood. It's kind of pick your poison. Who do you see as the starting goaltender right now? Because on paper, at the beginning of the season, it was Mackenzie Blackwood, but Scott Wedgwood has played fantastic this season that you could argue that he is the starting goaltender, the goaltender one of this team. Either way, two fantastic options between the pipes for the Avalanche, right? Just kind of pick who you want on that depending day. I still think Blackwood is obviously the goaltender one, right? Signed that long-term extension with us last season. I believe Scott Wedgwood is on, like a 1-2 year deal. So Blackwood is definitely the goaltender of the future at this point for the Avs. Scott Wedgwood has been playing fantastic. And then you got your young prospect in Ilya Nabokov to hopefully come stateside soon from Russia. And hopefully we can start to see him in the future. But that's for a different video, of course. Then let's take a look at the extras of potential backups and reinforcements for the Avalanche due to any injuries occurring. You got Yoel Kiviranta, who I do think could fill in on that bottom line depending on how Logan O'Connor's injury shapes up. If the injury flares up or something like that, or he's not able to return, I do think Kiviranta takes Logan O'Connor's spot on that bottom line. Then you have Gavin Brindley, who just got sent down to the AHL. And I'll be honest, I really like how Gavin Brindley wasn't included in the Nazem Kadri trade. Don't get me wrong, if we had to give him up, we had to give him up to get Nazem Kadri. But sending him down to the AHL, I don't think is the worst thing, right? I do like Gavin Brindley. I think he is going to be a big part of this team's future, but, really has struggled recently going into the Olympic break and then a little bit coming out of the break. So getting him down to the AHL, having him reset, having him produce and get those reps down in the AHL, and then maybe coming up at some point again, or just being a big part of the future, right? Signed a 2-year contract extension with us earlier in the season. I do like Gavin Brindley to be a part of this team's future, right? When we trade away so many prospects and picks, having Gavin Brindley for the future, I do like keeping him around. Then you have Zakhar Bardakov, who I do really like, right? Produced really well in the preseason and then has kind of bounced around the AHL, the NHL, hasn't played a whole lot this season with the Avs, but someone who I do like for the future as well, who we got in the Curtis McDermott trade a couple years back. And then you have Nick Blankenburg, the next defenseman, right? Someone who can plug into that defense core if an injury occurs, and just an extra guy, some depth that you have on the roster. So that is kind of how everything is shaping up. Let me know what your thoughts are for this Avs team. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Parker. If you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.